Hello everyone, welcome back to Andy's coding tutorials. This is lesson 11 of the Vue.js beginners tutorial, and in the last lesson we covered props. So what we did is we had a component and we added some props. We added a prop called color, and then each one of our 5 components we passed a different color in there: red, blue, green, yellow, orange, and we just displaying that name of the color on the button here, and it was red, blue, green, yellow, orange. Okay, so we learned that each one of them is different. So whatever you pass here will go only to that, pass through the props will go only to that specific instance of that component. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to actually do the opposite. We want to know how can we get data from a child component, because we can use these buttons for a lot of things, but it's not really useful if we can only pass data one way. We need to have data coming back the other way so that we can update our main instance or something. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you, I'm going to put this main instance of view count. What we're going to do with that is we are going to update that every time a button is clicked. Right, we're going to update the main count. Okay, so what we'll do here is we'll remove these color props. Okay, we'll just get rid of those here, get rid of those, and get rid of that color prop here. Okay, and we'll go back to the old you clicked times. Okay, and that was count. Okay, so remember this is this count, but what we're going to do is we're going to access this count as well. Okay, so we'll just put a couple of line breaks in here. Okay, and we're going to say main, put that in the span, and we're going to say main count. Okay, count. Okay, so this is the count from here, because this is in the template, it's not in the component. Okay, the component count is here, and we're accessing that here. This count is in here. Okay, alright, so let's load that up now and see what we get. So if we click that now, okay, so what we need here is an @click. So we'll do @click equals, and now we're in double quotes, so we need to put it in single quotes here, count plus plus. Okay, so if we do that now, that should update these ones. Okay, now that's not overly useful though. So what we want to do now is we want to update when this is clicked. When any of these buttons are clicked, we want the main count to update, and then the buttons themselves will update. So each one. So if there's 2, 3, 2, 2, and 2, that's going to be 8, 11. This should be 11. Okay. Okay. So now that that's incrementing, what we need to do now is we want to update this count. Okay. So first we need to add some methods here. Well, we need a method. Okay. And so we want to say increment count. And we need, don't forget that needs to be a function because we're in a method, and we're just going to say this dot count, and that's plus plus is increment, and we need to have a comma there to separate that from here. Okay, and what we want to do is increment count here. So at this @click we want to run the method instead of inline JavaScript. Okay, so if we run that now, that should have the same functionality as before. We're just putting that into a method. Okay, that's great. That's exactly what we want to do. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Okay, so we want to go, in this case, we need to say this dot emit, and there's 2 parameters we need to pass in here. The first one is the name of because we need to receive it on the other end. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, what do we want to call it when we receive it on the end? So let's say receive count. Let's say update count, that's better. So let's say update count. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to say, well, normally you can put a value in here, but what we'll just do for now is you could put a value in here like 1 or something like that. But what we'll do is we don't need that for now, so we'll just leave it without a value. Okay, and so then the next thing we need to do is we need to go back to this component and say v on Now remember we call this update count. Okay, so we want to go v on update count, and we can just remove that v on. Remember we can put it as an at. Okay, update count equals, and so what we want to do here is we can say here count plus plus if we really want, just like we had in the previous one in here. And so we'll just do that for all of these. Make sure they all get that. And so when we run this code now, this is going to emit data. It's going to go from the child components, go, hey, I've got some data, emit it, and then this component, this initialization of the component, this version of the component, it's going to go, hey, I've got a thing called update count. I'm going to run this function or this JavaScript code when that happens. Okay, so let's try it out. Let's reset that. And now we've clicked that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's matching 5 and 5. If we click this one, that's 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we've clicked that 25 times overall, but each button is only 5 because each instance keeps its track here. So every time that specific button is clicked here, the count in that individual component here, that is incremented by 1. So that's why each of them are at 5. But what we're doing is we're also saying, okay, when that increments this count here, this dot count, we also want to go this dot emit, and we'll emit a function. We'll emit something here, and we'll go, okay, wait for something called update count, and Vue's going to go, when it creates this component, it's going to go, oh, update count. Oh, okay, so I've got to wait for something there. What do I need to run? I need to run this count. And so we can also put that in a method as well. Okay, so let's call update count. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll call that increment count actually to match the other one. Increment count, and that's going to be a function. And what we'll do is we'll say, okay, let's do exactly that. This dot count plus plus. Okay, so if we change that and we just run increment count here, and we'll just go here. Okay, so that should work now as well in the same way. Now one more thing what we can do here is we can just instead update, instead of doing that, let's say, well, let's pass a variable in with this update count. So let's say here, let's pass this dot count. Okay, so this count in the instance is going to be sent out to there. So watch what happens when we do this. So we're going to say this dot count. Okay, and, okay, so we've got that passing here, and so what we need to do is here is in this function here we need to put a value. So let's say the new count, and this dot count equals new count. Okay, so that should update that data. So let's see what happens when we do this. Now see, that's up to 10 now, but if I click this one, it should update, reset to match that one. Okay, so every time I do it, it changes to the one that's matching, because we're updating, we're getting that data from this component. So this is the last one I clicked, and so it matches that. And if I click this again, it'll change over to the count from that, because we're emitting here the count. So we're incrementing it, and then we're emitting it in there, and this is being pulled through to the update count function, and we just make that variable here, and then we're updating it here. So once again, these components are pretty complicated, but now we've covered basic components, how to make them. We've covered how to send data to them using props, and now we've covered how to get data out of the component instance back into the main Vue instance. Okay, so thank you very much for watching this video, and if you have any questions or comments, please post them below. And don't forget, the code for this tutorial will be pasted below. Okay, so you can check that out, and you'll have the full working version here. Thank you very much.